Hello, and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad you're joining us again today. Today we have invited back Dr. Gabriel Cousens, who is the author of many books, and today is going to be speaking about a book that he actually wrote many years ago, but is in the process of being revised, upgraded, and renewed. That's Spiritual Nutrition and the Rainbow Diet. But this time he's going to be focusing on the beginning of it, called Spiritual Nutrition. Now, Meditation Magazine said of this book, it's the finest book ever written about the relationship of diet to spirituality and consciousness. So that's going to be the theme of today's interview. And Gabriel's been doing a lot of work on this, and he's going to be speaking to us rather directly about what he knows and what he has researched about this intimate and most interesting relationship between what we put in our bodies as food, how we even inhale, and our spiritual development. Hey, Gabriel.
Hey, Mitchell, it's great to be here.
Great to have you again. Really, it's great. And in New York, no less.
Yes.
Yeah. Although I love those mountains of Tucson, I tell you.
Yeah.
Keeps one very healthy and attuned, you know?
Yes, it's part of the spiritual nutrition.
Yeah, exactly. Eat that good air. So this has been sort of like a mainstay of your diet, if you will, for a long time. Yes. The relationship of consciousness and spirituality to diet. You've been known for your work in spirituality, your work in diet. You are basically considered a mystic by many, and you're kind of in a unique position to comment both as someone mystical as well as a scientist. And this we see more and more as a convergence happening between the spiritual world, the world of consciousness, and quantum physics, etc. So, what do you feel that we ought to know about this intimate and divine relationship?
One of the gifts I'm really offering to the world, and really the work we do with the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center in Patagonia, Arizona, as you mentioned, is the gift of what we call whole person awakening. Different than many mystical approaches, we honor the body. In the original Kabbalistic teachings, it was said that the finite vessels were filled with the infinite light, but they couldn't hold the energy, and they broke.
Yeah.
And so part of what we're doing, part of my work, is helping people build such a strong vessel of light that it can hold the light.
Withstand that power.
That's right.
If you will.
And that is really, because part of my work as a Kundalini master is understanding if people aren't really ready, they can't hold the light of consciousness, and they can get out of balance. So my work is putting that all together. And first I want to lay out, in essence, from a more yogic point of view, the idea of the koshas, which include the physical body, but also the different levels of the subtle bodies or light bodies.
Mm-hmm.
The first kosha is Annamaya kosha, which is the physical body or the food body.
Yeah.
Okay, and
that's
where we're going to focus.
Mm-hmm.
The next level of light or reflection is the Kamamaya kosha, which is the desire body, but it's also about desire and resistance in our life, and also morality and so forth. And then Manomaya kosha, which is the mental body, which food also greatly affects. Okay, in fact, plays a very important role. Our thinking processes are very much affected by what we eat, and also, in my experience as the premier spiritual fasting clinic in the world, we find that when people apply the principles of spiritual fasting with green juices, the mind gets very clear and also very quiet. Many people who were not able to meditate before, in the middle of our 7-day spiritual fast cycle, where we're meditating twice a day, doing the yoga and so forth, are able to actually really start to meditate. Okay,
that's a big step.
That's a very big step, and I've been teaching this for since 1988. And so I have a lot of experience in it, and it just is a very consistent thing, is that when the mind gets clear of the toxins from the food and so forth, the bile toxins, we are able to go deeper in the meditation.
It can really slow down and
Quiet.
quiet.
And they say yoga chitta virta nirodha. Yoga is stilling the virtues or activities of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the first part of yoga. The second part of yoga is transcending the mind. Okay? So once we pass Manomaya Kosha, we go to Atika Manasa Kosha. Now, what is that? That is the connection with nature, connection with beautiful music, the intuitive opening, the kind of opening that an Einstein has where he dreams the theories of relativity and then puts it into practice coming out of his dream. It's the opening of the more of the subtle bodies. And then we have Viveka.
Making them available, the
Right.
intelligence, information from the subtle bodies available to the other
Exactly.
levels, like the material.
And now see what you just outlined how this whole works. Okay? Because essentially what we have to do is each kosha is, in a sense, a layer of reflectivity.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a mirror that's dirty, it does not reflect the light. Right? And so what we do when we're doing this work is how to open up the layers so they reflect the light, so we become what we are already, light beings.
Mm-hmm.
But because we don't experience it, we don't operate that way. Okay. After that is the Viveka Manasa Kosha. Now what that is the Vairagya, which is non-attachment. Non-attachment does not mean detachment. This is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Detachment is kind of avoidance of life. Non-attachment means you're fully enmeshed in life as all expression of the divine. So in that process, you're not attached.
Mm-hmm.
Subtle way of understanding.
Oh, yes.
This is the way I teach it. So you're just experiencing it all as the divine play and the divine love.
It's actually a tantric position.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right tuned in.
All right.
That's very good.
Paying attention.
And that is really a lot about what this is about.
Yes.
And then the other thing about the Viveka Manasa Kosha is we have the Vairagyas, which I just mentioned, and Vivekya. The ability to tell the difference between the eternal reality and the temporal reality. The great Essene teacher of righteousness once said, "Thus thou forsake the eternal, for that which dieth in an hour." And it's being able to make the distinction. And the distinction is the I am is who we are. I teach a course called the 0 Point. And the theme is essentially the personality is a case of mistaken identity. Okay, this is what we're
Right.
talking about.
Right.
And then we go into Haranamasa Kosha, which is the merging into golden white light, as I experience it. And that is the I am awareness. Okay? And that's also what we call Sankalpa Samadhi, where you merge into the white light. And then Sankalpa Samadhi becomes self-realization when it's a consistent experience of who you are as the I am and not as body-mind complex.
Personality.
Right. And then that's the sixth level. And then the seventh level is what we call moksha, or God merging. And there are very few beings. So we have self-realization at the sixth level, Haranamasa Kosha,
Mm-hmm.
consistently. Now, when you're consistently in a certain state of the Sankalpa Samadhi, it's called Sahaja Samadhi, where whether you're awake or asleep, you're in the light. I mean, literally in my sleep state, there's not much dreams. I do dream occasionally, but it's this white light all the time, and you wake in bliss all the time. So it's like an unbroken state, awake or sleep. Okay. But even beyond that is the final merging, and that's very, very rare. Maybe 5 people on the planet maybe are in that state. It's hard
At
to
a time.
Yeah, it's hard to maintain that state. At the end of a 40-day fast, I was in it for 3 days. And usually the teaching is if after 3 days you end up leaving your body, and the message is you need to go back and teach this stuff.
Yeah, right.
Really, from the Kabbalistic point of view, which is my kind of origin roots,
Uh-huh.
okay, even though my breakthroughs really happened in India to start with,
Uh-huh.
into the Haranamaya Kosha and the Sankalpa Samadhi, or the self-realization level, is really one of we are all one soul. One planetary soul. Each group has their own soul groups, but we must all evolve together. And that's really why I'm here, and I know why you're here. So the whole planet needs to accelerate the consciousness. It's not just, okay, I got it, I'll see you later.
Exactly.
So
I'm out of here.
That's where I'm coming from, is that. So in that context, which you already alluded to, each layer needs to be wiped clean so it can reflect the light of the divine, of the Atma.
It's such a beautiful image.
It's a beautiful
It's a very
model.
workable image.
And the work that I do with the tree is clearing, helping people with the courses and meditation and what we call Shaktipat, and also in the Kabbalistic Ruach HaKodesh, the ultimate food, is the awakening of the spiritual energy to align all the koshas, all the spiritual bodies, and open up all the circuitry. Now in that context, we can talk about spiritual nutrition because we understand that we're improving all the bodies. And I want to say right from the beginning that although the food approach is primarily about the anima, anima kosha, the physical body, it affects the mind tremendously because we are what we think. And what we eat affects what we think. Okay? And it also even affects the Atika Manasa kosha because it opens up the third eye, it opens up our connection with nature. So one of the reasons we do the spiritual fasting out in nature is so we suddenly become very open to that. A lot of people from New York love it because we have that lightning bolt intensity, but in the context of nature.
Right.
As you see on our brochure, we have a lightning bolt there.
Exactly.
An oasis for awakening. That's what we do. And so in the
and there in the mountains, man, you see that lightning like nobody's business. It's incredible. It's an entire canopy of lightning.
That's right.
And I was there, and I saw it and felt it.
Right. And that's really who we are. It's like the lightning bolt oasis for awakening on every level of the koshas to do that. But I want to say this, so we don't want to limit the food in terms of where it's working on, because it does open us up to nature. A lot of people, particularly in the spiritual fast, which is more dramatic, really experience the connection with nature, because as you get silent, you begin to experience the overwhelming silence in nature. Right? And that's the great teacher. The overwhelming and silence in nature entrains us to our own inner silence.
Yeah.
So, and our own intuition opens up. And also the beautiful music of nature in a way.
I connected, Gabriel, when I was at your place this past summer to the desert energy. It happened in a flash, actually, of just being quiet enough. And that wasn't a pun intended. I mean, in reality, it was just all of a sudden I was by the infrared sauna, that whole little area over there, where there are these great therapeutic modalities for you outside in nature. And all of a sudden, it was like the desert spirit came into it.
That's right.
And I went, oh my God, that's why they're here.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
And what I discovered was that live food was the most powerful living force. Now, when we eat food, we're biting into the living planet. And we're taking that consciousness with us. And so when it's live, we're getting all the life force of the planet. So one of the things that happens is, indeed, in India, we call it prana. Okay? And when you take live food, it has the most prana. Now, this is not my statement. I will tell you the ancient yogis and rishis, thousands of years ago, prior to Ayurvedic in a sense, their diet was live food. Now it's cooked food, I understand that. I'm talking prior. Why was that? Because when you increase the prana in the system with the food, you expand consciousness. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is that in the nervous system, we have a subtle nervous system we call the nadis. And for the kundalini, we have the Sushumna, Ida, and Pangali, but there's 72,000 nadis. When you eat the live food, you, in a sense, clean the nadis so that the spiritual energy can flow through more powerfully, in a sense, spiritualizing every aspect, including the chakra systems, as well as on the cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a third level here, and that's minerals. Now, live food is very high in minerals, particularly the diet that I recommend, which is more green-oriented. The minerals are, in a sense, every mineral is a frequency of light. There are 92 minerals. Most people are running about 30 minerals, or maybe even 12 minerals. Okay? So the more minerals we bring into the system, the more frequencies of light we bring in, the more open to probability. In a sense, we expand consciousness on the level of the manamasa kosha, the mind level. Okay? And so the more frequencies we bring in, the more potentiality we have, and the more potential we have to have the divine understanding. Now we go beyond that, in the sense we go beyond the mind to higher perceptions, which really come from meditation, which is another level of food, and come from the waking of the kundalini. But the level of the mind, we have either contracted minds. When you eat the junk food, what we're doing is giving up our birthright, which is the life force of the planet and all the frequencies that are available to us. This is, to me, a very important thing. So, in a sense, people who are on the junk food diet have given up their birth, their connection to the birthright. Live food reestablishes that connection, increases the prana, increases the mineralization, which increases our potentiality of frequencies to take into our life. The more frequencies, the more open we are to probability, and therefore the more we are open to the divine experience. And these are the key things. These are the key principles of the relationship of spirituality to nutrition. And as we clean those first three koshas, and even going into Atika Manasaya kosha, the fifth kosha, fourth kosha, we begin to, in a sense, reflect the divine light that's coming through and begin to experience ourselves as light beings. The light's always coming through. But when the mind is kind of active, it absorbs the energy. So when we quiet the mind, diet helps quiet the mind, a proper diet, when we fast, which is a part of diet, the more quiet the mind gets, the more the light can pass through directly into our being, and we become, in a sense, our physical body reflects the light, and we begin to experience ourselves as true light beings. And that really puts it in context.
Definitely.
You know, we become a total mirror for the light. Now, when we move from the physical body into the emotional bodies, the mental bodies, and so forth, it's like a narrow doorway that takes us into what I call the presence, the witness consciousness, and then to the divine presence, and then to the I am. And that's how the path opens. So through physical body being a vehicle of light, it begins to move us up into the higher bodies, into the divine presence, into the I am awareness, which are the first stages of self-realization.
You know, it's interesting, Gabriel, that we think of light bodies as like the energy body, as higher level bodies, but the whole idea really, as you're really so beautifully putting it, is for this dense physical body to be made a light body.
Yes.
By conducting the light through according to what you're laying out with the koshas. That's what's happening. The physical body is getting enlightened.
Exactly, and that's why I call it full body enlightenment or full body awakening. And that's really one of my gifts here. And that's my work. It's like, as a holistic physician, as a psychiatrist, as a mystic, I pull it all together.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
And using the different traditions, yoga and Kabbalah and so forth. Sure. It's like a synthesis in a different way, and it's what's needed at this time.
By all means. Now, are there particular foods or nutrients that will help to open up the nadis and the third eye?
Yeah. Yes, there are. And what I would say most clearly is like spiritual fasting, which is with the green juices.
So it's a juice fast, green juice fast.
It's very powerful. What's happening is the juices, the vegetable kingdom, in a Kabbalistic teaching is considered closer to the primordial essence. Okay, they may not be as conscious, but what they are is they have that closeness to the primordial essence. So when we take it in, we're being filled with that primordial essence of the divine life. We share with them our consciousness, they share with this, and that ups our deeper experience as being light. So I would say that the greens and the grasses. Now, Rabbi Mahmoud in the 17th century used to go out and meditate with the grasses, and there was even
at the cows.
Yeah, but more of the grasses.
Yeah.
And the idea is that we even have a song to the grasses. So this is something that the Kabbalists knew hundreds of years ago about being in nature.
Yeah.
And so, are there secret foods? We can say yes, there's superfoods like the algae, particularly the blue-green algae, which really opens up the mind, opens up the Tikka Manasa Kosha. More specifically, the heavier greens like spirulina, they're all high, very high light frequencies. The vegetables in general are going to do us well. I don't emphasize fruits too much because one of the problems with fruits is we have too much sugar, and we end up, one of the deficits and one of the battles I won beautifully in India with the Swamis is that, you know what, if you have hypoglycemia, you cannot have a consistent meditation. And the way I converted people to getting off their sweets and junk food was, you want to meditate for hours and hours like I do, because I used to meditate 6 hours a day in India, give up your sweets. If your blood sugar is going up and down, your consciousness cannot hold. And
the VTs are dancing.
Yes. And I had real success in convincing the Indian Swamis and even the American Swamis, that this works.
Yeah.
And so
they experienced the benefit.
That's right. Yeah. And so hypoglycemia is really a detriment, and that's really an imbalance of the chakra system. But the sugars imbalance that. Plus, they tend to stimulate candida, which sends off, funguses send off toxins, which literally deplete the neurotransmitters and actually attack the nervous system. So you don't want any of that.
Yeah.
So a green diet primarily. Everybody's diet varies. Some people need a higher protein diet. Some people need a lower protein diet according to their constitution. But the green, organic, because pesticides and herbicides irritate the nervous system.
Sure.
Okay? So green, organic, grown with consciousness and love, because we take in who's growing the food too. And that's a simple thing. And no longer, in the ancient times they used milk, but milk right now has, so many pesticides and herbicides and hormones and the
steroids.
Cows are not treated very well. So what once was what we call ratu, is now ama, which is toxic.
Oh.
So we can't really say that that's what we call sattvic diet. So what I'm describing is a more modern sattvic diet, at least 80% live food.
Clean and pure, that is.
Yeah. A sattvic diet is one that takes you into the self rather than out into the world.
Yeah.
And at least 80% live foods. Focus on the greens is the main thing, and enough protein to whatever you need for your strength and for meditation for your constitution. And those are the key things.
What about people who live in really cold climates, in northern climates? Where one, availability isn't great, and two, they're cold.
We have a live food movement going on in Alaska, and I interviewed many of the people, and 95% of them were successful.
Really?
Alaska. Why were they successful? Because they exercise and it creates heat. That's how they really work. So they can be on live foods as long as they exercise. Then they use more cayenne and ginger. It does work. You just warm and you exercise, and it works. It is really not a problem. And really, I'll tell you this, that being on live foods, you actually improve your circulation. So when I was younger, I don't think my circulation was as good. I was a football player, and I used to played animals because my feet would get so cold. And after I began doing life foods, I could go out in the snow in my bare feet. Okay, totally different experience. So I actually think after a few years, not right away, when the circulation is open, you have enough heat from your own body.
And what you're saying, I know we only have another minute or two left, but I would like to bring back in the Kabbalistic perspective, which you did reference, of course, from the point of view of the green diet. Was there the thorough understanding of its relationship to connecting to awakening?
The Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid of Mezerich, basically said that diet was very important for spiritual life. That you need to eat in a way to support your spirituality. That's as far as they really said. But actually, they said if you had disease, it was like a hole in your soul. So that they emphasized the importance of taking care of your body. They weren't really that sophisticated. You go back to Genesis 1:29, and we're back to the green diet.
I see, yeah.
So God told us, manna
Yeah.
in the Exodus, what would they put on? A light food.
Right, exactly. A
And
manna diet.
a manna diet, right? And so it's all there. And the
It's in
Rav,
the teaching.
and Rav Kook, the first chief rabbi of Israel, was a vegetarian. They didn't have the language and technologies I've worked it out. I mean, we're way more advanced now. I mean, this is the first time in history we can be successful live fooders, successful vegans. First time in history because we have all these superfoods available. We have a way of life available, and
And access, too.
access and the technology. I mean, basically in conscious eating, in the Rainbow Green Life Food Cuisine, spiritual nutrition. I've outlined the whole path. It's like you can't fail if you just follow the consciousness that I've outlined.
Well, thank you, Todah Rabba, for your beautiful gift here, because this is very rich, very rich. It's rich food. Is that acceptable?
Yes, yes.
Thanks a lot,
Yes.
Gabriel.
Okay.
Very beautiful. Incredible information that can just feed every single part of you. I'm greatly, greatly appreciative of this. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next week.